Hello and welcome. Let me ask you something. What if AI reviewed 100% of your team's code and wrote nearly all of it?
Well, for the folks at OpenAI, that's not some far-off future. It's happening right now. And honestly, the stats coming out of there are completely rewriting the rulebook for what it even means to be an engineer.
So let's get right into it. We're going to look at the hard numbers that are really defining this new reality. Okay, get this. A whopping 95% of engineers at OpenAI use their AI coding assistant, Codex, every single day. We're not talking about some niche tool that a few people are experimenting with. This is the standard operating procedure. It's just how they work now. And if that wasn't wild enough, 100%, that's right, every single pull request gets reviewed by Codex before it goes into production. Think about that. It just dramatically speeds up what is, let's be honest, a pretty tedious part of the job for a lot of engineers. It's like having this super smart teammate looking over your shoulder 24/7. And you can see the impact right here. Engineers who really lean into using Codex, they're opening 70% more pull requests. But here's the kicker. That gap is actually getting wider over time. The more they use it, the bigger the productivity jump gets.
So this begs the question, right? If the AI is writing a ton of the code and reviewing all of it, what does the engineer even do all day? Well, their job is going through this absolutely massive transformation.
They're not just down in the trenches writing lines of code anymore. It's more like they've become conductors of an orchestra. They're steering fleets of 10, maybe 20 AI agents at the same time, giving them feedback and managing all these parallel streams of work. It's a huge shift from being an individual contributor to being a high-level director. And this shift is so profound that the engineers inside OpenAI had this really cool way of talking about it. The head of platform engineering, Sherwin Wu, said it literally feels like we're wizards casting all these spells. And that metaphor has really stuck, leading to this powerful new idea for what a modern engineer is, the sorcerer's apprentice.
And if you've seen Fantasia, you know exactly what this means. The power you're wielding is just immense. But, and this is a big but, you can't just set the task and walk away. It takes real skill and oversight to manage that kind of leverage. Otherwise, the magical brooms start flooding the castle, and you've got a huge mess on your hands.
So, okay, what happens when the magic spells don't quite work? Because, let's be real, these agents are not perfect. And that's actually where some of the most interesting challenges and best practices are starting to pop up.
There's actually an internal team at OpenAI running this wild experiment. A code base that is 100% written by Codex. There's no human escape hatch to jump in and fix things. And what they've learned is fascinating. When an agent fails, it's almost always a context problem. It didn't have enough information. So the solution isn't for a human to jump in and write the code. Instead, it's to teach the agent. You encode all that tribal knowledge, the stuff that's usually just in people's heads, into the code base itself through better comments and documentation. You're basically leveling up the AI for the next time.
Okay, so this massive boost in individual productivity, it doesn't just stop at one person's workflow. When a single engineer can do the work of an entire team, you better believe that sends shockwaves through the entire startup ecosystem.
Yeah, we've all heard the hype, right? The dream of the one-person billion-dollar startup. But is that what's really going to happen? Sherwin Wu at OpenAI thinks people are missing the bigger picture here. They aren't thinking about the second and third order effects of this kind of productivity. The much more likely reality, he says, isn't one giant unicorn. It's a golden age of B2B SaaS. We're talking about a massive explosion of smaller but incredibly successful companies. Not $1 billion startup, but maybe hundreds of $100 million startups. And even more exciting, tens of thousands of $10 million startups. That is life-changing money for founders. And it'll be fueled by small teams building super specific, bespoke software for all sorts of niche industries.
So let's say you're a builder in this new world. The big question is, how do you build a product that doesn't get made obsolete tomorrow by the very AI tools you're using to build it?
Here's the key idea, and it's a great quote from Nicholas, the founder of Finol. The models will eat your scaffolding for breakfast. What he means is that a lot of early AI tools, things like the first agent frameworks or vector stores, they were really just built as temporary workarounds for things the models couldn't do well yet. But as the models get better, that scaffolding just becomes completely unnecessary. So here's the playbook. The wrong way to build is for where the models are today. You're just building that temporary scaffolding that's going to get eaten. The right approach is to build for where the models are going. You create a product for a capability that's maybe 80% of the way there. You know the models are going to close that last 20% gap, and when they do,
boom, you've got an amazing product ready to go.
And you have to keep this one simple, powerful idea in your head at all times. It comes from Kevin Whale, OpenAI's VP of Science. This is the worst the models will ever be. Just let that sink in. The pace of improvement is absolutely relentless. Any limitation you see today could literally be gone tomorrow.
Okay, wow. That was a lot. So let's do a quick recap and pull out the key takeaways from this whole engineering revolution we've been talking about. So, to sum it up, we've seen this total revolution inside OpenAI, where AI usage is the norm, boosting productivity like crazy. We've talked about how the role of the engineer is changing, from a coder to a sorcerer, managing fleets of AI agents. We also touched on the real startup boom, which is less about one giant company and more about a golden age of smaller, super successful B2B SaaS businesses. And finally, the builder's mantra. You have to build for where the models are headed because today's AI is the worst it will ever be.
And that last point is really the most important one. This is just the beginning. Everything we can do today is the absolute worst it's ever going to be from this point forward. So the only real question left is, what are you going to build for tomorrow?